Hello, Deborah Gale Hickman, and whoever else is here. I'll put my face on the camera in a moment. Hello, Suzanne, and hello, Lee. And now I'm on camera. So I guess that's about a 15-second delay. Not too bad. I'd rather have a little bit of a delay than not have a transmission. So, how's everybody doing out there? Obviously, you have to give a little bit of time because once I hit, go live at 9 o'clock, and everybody has to kind of, see it come in their emails. And I know when I get a fresh email, I don't have like any kind of audio signal to let me know it's coming in. So if I don't catch it right away, I don't see it right away. So Deborah, I'm glad to see a new name. Can't say a new face because it's a new name. All right, Lee. That's a good report. Weird is good. Weird. Getting weirder means we're making progress. Because, well, to return to a baseline reality, well, compared to what we think is baseline reality, there's going to be some weird stuff involved with that. Hello, Doc. I was just speaking about people not seeing email notifications until after the stream, which happens to me a lot. Sometimes I've been teaching myself some new skills, video editing, more audio editing, and electronics. So I've been doing a lot of full immersion in things. So I can have new skill sets because with new skill sets I can approach new avenues of getting something done and accomplished. Because one of the things about doing things, if you do something, you want to have a sense of accomplishment. And I'm running into some frustrations in some of the things I'm doing, and when I do run into frustrations and things I'm doing, if I can't think of a way to do it better or with more integrity, then usually what it is I should stop doing that and then find something else to do. And Mama has been plugging me with tons of inspiration. It's hard to, I actually had to force myself to take a day off yesterday because my inspiration was driving me, but another voice was going, you need not to burn out to keep this candle going here. So take a day off. So I did. So I'm going to once we got 9 here. Once we hit 10, I have something from a video. It's a poem and it's written by an Italian gentleman. You'll hear the name when I start it. I can't quite. I think it's Calvatore might be the last name. I forget. We'll all hear it shortly. And it's a reading from a John Lash video. Somebody put out a John Lash video that apparently is from during the period of correction, Sophia's correction from 2011 to 2014, because he made a reference in there of like a date in 2014 that hadn't come yet. So this is a video that's at least 4 years old. And so it was interesting, but he closes it with a poem. And the interesting thing is apparently this was one of the people who had investigated what was around from antiquity about the Gnostics, but this was in the early 1900s. This was before the Nag Hammadi texts were found, and then that became what Gnostic was. So it's coming from a perspective before the Nag Hammadi texts were found, and then what Gnostic was became quite confusing. So that's why, and it's, I guess I'll call it prosatry, because it's not poetry and it's not quite prose, because it has its it has its kind of modulations of strength in it, like a poem would or a song would, which is a form of poem. And it's probably some of the best metaphors I've ever heard used for somebody trying to explain what it is like once they encounter the divine intelligence of this planet, our creator. And some of that, and I could see in some of the metaphor that he had the real experience, because you could see that the word he had was probably the best word. One of the, there's a word he uses that I understood meant awe, uncomparable. There's one place that he uses the word uncomparable, incomparable. And in the way he used it, I realized he was speaking about the awe of seeing Sophia at work, seeing what she has done. And the real word to fit for me really there would be agape, which means that awe, that the real love, which is so intense that there's awe about it. Love like there are no, uncomparable. So this man uses metaphors that are so well placed, and what he is saying is literal. That's one of the things that a lot of times when metaphors and symbology are needed, you have to kind of understand the symbolism. The symbolism here is the English vocabulary. There's no tricks in it. But once again, you'll have to be able to put together the metaphors, but it is literal. Yeah, well, Suzanne, again, that's why I mentioned what it was. Once the Nag Hammadi texts were found, and they're full of they're a mixture. This is Coptic Egypt, and Coptic Egypt was more. The biggest population of Jewish scholars outside of Jerusalem was in Alexandria. So that part, again, the archontic influence into Alexandria was huge. And it was impressive for people who were not really initiates, but like all humans, they want the greater knowledge. So they were offered an alternative, and apparently was being offered to almost anybody. Within the mysteries, you had to kind of qualify for the mysteries. So the scholars there were offering, anybody who was interested and could do it, it was made available to them. So when you read the text when you read the Nag Hammadi text, you can see all of that influence in there. But you'll also read the Gnostic text. And sometimes I wonder if some of the Gnostic, especially like in trimorphic, is that what it is? I can't even remember some of the names, but it was one of the. It starts off great. It starts off, you say, no, this is feeling real good. And then after you kind of like, or maybe saying, okay, this is a real text, and then you start seeing the insertions. Yeah, the Greeks were definitely influenced. The Greek, I won't even call it. I'm getting ahead of myself. I should probably let me finish one thought before I start with another one. So, to me, there are writings about. Actually, I have something that I have yet to read. To me, anything written about the Gnostics before the Nag Hammadi texts were found will be closer to what was the Gnostic thing. Because part of it is because the Nag Hammadi texts, because they have Gnostic inclusions, have been called Gnostic. And so far, I haven't read one fully Gnostic piece of work amongst the Nag Hammadi text. Not one. It's it's a mixture. And some of it could just be misunderstanding. You're building your own creation story. That's what's going on with the whole New Age thing. I mean, part of the reason for me to start this live stream was hoping to at least bring one set of thought in a consistent fashion into something and see if it was helpful. They are different, because one is not any. The Nag Hammadi texts are not any one thing. You have Valentinian school. I mean, you have these different schools, and they're actually a kind of competition. I mean, it's really what I read in the Nag Hammadi text, and especially because Jesus is everywhere in those texts, or some kind of Christ figure. So, we have something that's kind of like very unique to what was happening in that part of the world. And, again, the Gnostic part of what's in the Nag Hammadi text was the wisdom of the ancient world. But to fully understand it, you had to go to mystery schools, or else you had a basic understanding. So there's this kind of basic understanding, and then there's this new stuff that's giving it away. They're giving it away to anybody who's interested. So then they start adding that stuff on to the older basic story, and then you get a conflation, and that's what we have in the Nag Hammadi texts, in my opinion. Yeah, all of the ancient traditions are passed down. Matter of fact, I recently watched a video. He was a relatively young chief, and the chief isn't a medicine man, but the chief has the medicine men that will talk to him. And he was saying how much of the history of the giants. I mean, they have an oral tradition that tells a complete. I mean, if it was written down, it would fill a book. But all of the oral traditions all come with a thing is you can't write them down, because that's when they get messed with. That's when they can be edited. And people who were given the oral traditions were recognized that they had that kind of path pretty early on in life, and they were not able to be a storyteller until they got the story straight and could tell it straight. And so what the historians have very conveniently done is basically, if it's an oral history, it can't be real. But if it was written down, then they would accept it. So we can understand why our history is pretty screwy. Okay. Oh. We're up to 9. So when we get to 10, I'd play the thing, but we're down to 7, and that's so again. I started this live stream because I thought maybe sharing my path and also my groundedness. Like, I don't have a lot of what ifs. I have a very grounded experience of where we are. You're quoting a movie, Suzanne. When it comes to movies, they don't even, to me, it's like, I mean, who writes movies? So who cares what's written in a movie? I mean, those are the professional liars. The people who write the movie, the same people who wrote the scriptures. It's the same mindset. It's the same thing. And that's why we fall into the movies, and then conversely we can fall into scripture, because it's the same narrative writing. It's the same storytelling. It's the same storytelling version. Yeah, but I'm, if there's anybody from Hollywood reading what you just said there, I'm quite sure they're thrilled. It's like, oh, they're still going to come to our movies because they think we're going to give them something important in the movie. They keep coming because they still think we're telling them secrets that they shouldn't have. It's working. I mean, The Matrix, talk about telling a story upside down and backwards. Yeah, I mean, I agree with, thanks, Lee, because it's just like, you know, something, the junk, if you can't bring your garbage to the dump, you can, you know, leave it at the side of the road and keep on moving. It may not look nice for the people coming behind you, but, you know, that's what they get for being laggards. We could all leave the junk and move on together, and we wouldn't have to look at that garbage ever again. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, of course. I mean, could we ask for a greater confirmation of just, you know, how comfortable with their reality they are? So anyway, so last week's and it's funny, I was going, like I said, we've got 9. I was going to play the clip when we got to 10. Well, we've dropped to 7. I might have to change my metrics. And so, you know, last week I was reading from the Fallen Goddess scenario, kind of, you know, the Sophianic narrative. And I was getting into it, and then I realized when I kind of, you know, remember, you know, I was tuning into the chat. And I realized I must have been boring the shit out of everybody last week, because Darcy came in and relieved everybody with her wit and humor, and it looked to me like the people were happy to get that relief. So I realized I must be doing. I think that maybe something that I think is important is only important to me, and I need to get that. So I'm playing with the idea of ending the Can't You Hear Me Gnostic stream, and largely from just, you know, the feedback. I've been performing since before puberty. Reading the crowd is everything to me. And, you know, if I were a comedian, told a joke and nobody laughed, either I have the wrong crowd or I'm telling a bad joke. If I played a song and nobody clapped, either I played a bad song or I have the wrong crowd. So, like I said, last week I thought I was doing probably one of the more important things I've done in this stream, which is to read the Fallen Goddess scenario. And then I go into the chat and I could see that I had lost everybody. Well, most people. And like I said, fortunately for the chat people, they had Darcy to provide levity to the dreariness apparently that I was bringing. And so then, you know, it made me really reconsider what it is I think I'm doing here. And like I said, based on feedback, what I think I'm doing, I'm not doing. So I need to kind of look in the mirror and say, what's next? Now, fortunately, I was doing that during the week. I got a ton of shit to do. And it will still involve YouTube things, but it's a different direction. And it certainly isn't about, I guess, trying to tell people shit they don't want to hear. So, you know, I pay attention, you know, and also when I sat with the frustration and asked for inner guidance, I need to get inner guidance. I got a dump truck of download of things to do besides this. And so, you know, again, I'm in pretty, I'm in good spirits tonight. I might have to get more water. Started the show. I filled it. I reached over. I said, okay, I better pour my first cup of water. And that was the only cup of water in there. Yeah, I know. Yeah, the chats do go off the rails, but they wouldn't go off the rails if I had something that people really wanted to hear. In other words, one person might go off the rails, but other people wouldn't fall into it if the other person wasn't offering greater entertainment value than I was. And to me, education is a form of entertainment. So again, I'm going to do my stream tonight. I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether I will continue with next week. I'll continue making videos. I have my Mystic Brews, and I'm really enjoying the new music stuff. And I'm just reading some of the things because I'm kind of, I'm blabbing a little bit here. And, again, last week made me a little, to me, it's about looking in the mirror. If it seems, hey, nobody seems to be paying attention, well, then the thing is, maybe you're boring the shit out of them, and that's why, you think it's grand. They have another opinion, and their opinion counts. So, I've taken the feedback in, and again, it's not like anybody wrote me feedback. This feedback, the actions people take. There's more data in actions than there are in words. So I'm all about data. At one level, I'm kind of a watcher, but I like doing things, and I've helped a lot of people by not just being a watcher. I mean, in my real life, I've helped quite a few people, and I even have people bugging me to take a job because they need people who can do things, and so we'll see. But I also belong to Global Mission of Peace, which I have been moderating for almost 3 years now. We're just coming up on it, and taking a job I do have other responsibilities. So, anyway, there's a bigger snafu going on behind the scenes these days. I think you were a light in a sea of fuckery. Well, thank you very much, Lee. There's a whole lot going on. Hello, Soul Traveler. And that's one of the things that, to me, I know that's why Moose was doing his Moose Lodge. And then that's why I started this live stream. There's, you want to try to provide some calm in the storm. But not many people, if they do see a storm coming, it's like, well, I've seen it coming. I guess it's always going to stay there, and it's just going to always look like it's coming, but it'll never be here. Yeah, we're in very interesting times. There is so much going on esoterically and exoterically. I mean, and it's hard to keep up. At least with the esoteric's a little bit easier to keep up on because it's a natural kind of, it's like you can keep up with nature. But what's happening in the world, which is very unnatural, it's kind of the Battle of Armageddon has begun. Yeah, the whole, and the Gaia TV thing, the people of the light, the fact that there was a group of people who were, I guess the Goodites. The fact that Corey Good, that whole thing has a following is really saddening. And not only did they have a following, they had a feral following. I mean, those guys had, those guys gave the Kalika Warriors a run for their money as far as, telling people what they had on their mind. So, I have to, the general state of, I have some notes I wrote down. The general state of the alternative community is a wreck. And even as I'm thinking about making this my, this, or maybe, or by the end of March, like, in other words, ending this stream, I have all kinds of ideas for doing things on YouTube. Even with the censorship, because with just a little bit of cunning, you can avoid the censorship. See, a lot of people are still kind of doing the clickbait crap. Clickbait is one of the quickest ways to get busted. Put something outrageous there. Go out, throw that red meat out. Well, you're going to attract a bunch of critters with red meat. And right now, apparently that red meat also attracts the censors. But, people like Sticks, Hex, and Hammer, and other people who are going, once it's not very hard to figure out what presses their buttons. They're tards, man. It's not difficult. So all you have to do is not get defiant and go, well, who do you think you are to tell me? And so the people who decided, I'm going to tell the truth or whatever, and then, of course, what's the truth? So I'm not really that worried about YouTube. Who knows? Maybe I'll get kicked in the head and I'll go, remember what I said about YouTube? I was wrong. But we're not there right now. Hello, Niche. So, YouTube, and because of who's on it, we need, if people still want some form of celebrities, can we please elect our own? And in other words, let everybody just kind of show up and bring what they have, and the ones who really do something good kind of become the known celebrities. Like, everybody kind of knows who Sargon of Akkad. Akkad is, if I say Sticks, Hex, and Hammer, you might know his name. These are our celebrities. In other words, we know who they are. We say their name, and they have wide name recognition. And so the way that, and so YouTube actually offers this world that goes all around the world that we have input in. It's not like somebody selects a star and then they get them on enough TV shows talking so that they get into your conversation, and so we can do that ourselves, and YouTube is a great place for doing that. And if we get real, and if we start doing things like in a real world kind of way, instead of always going after people who they're going to protect their asses. Look, they're going down. There's no need to kick them on the way down. They're on the way out. So, kicking them, they're going to kick back while they can. If you have a bunch of social justice warriors or other type of people that are, these are the young people that are getting these jobs, and you offend them, and we know they're easily offended, and they hit that thing. And then, of course, there's also people who troll, who don't like what you say, so they make a complaint. There's a whole kind of silliness, but this will get cleared up. YouTube could be an immensely popular platform for advertisers, and once you get real, there's all kinds of ways of advertisers and content creators actually working together, because this way here, nobody's wasting their time. Nobody is endorsing a product that they think is trash, and the people who want you to use their product aren't putting it in front of people who could give a shit about it. Things could be done a lot better for everybody. And I'm somebody who's not even into the whole monetization thing, but I'm aware it's there, and I see and I know how much certain parts of the world get moved by that monetization. So the whole YouTube thing is playing out, and Stick Hexenhammer has an in with some of the people there in the administration. He actually gets to talk to people. So there's some real progress being made there. So I have all kinds of ideas of how to use, conceptually about how to do things differently with YouTube. But the one thing I was, is getting our categories better. Like somebody, I think, I've heard some discussions amongst some of the people like Stick Hexenhammer, the Lionel Nations, the ones who are discussing the stories of the day. So they go, what are we all? Are we alt-right? What, So to me, all of those names that have any sense of political direction in them, left, right, any of that stuff, it comes with a fair amount of baggage. So I was wondering what would like with what Sargon does, with what Styx does, and all the different people who Lionel, David Seaman is a little bit on his own thing, but Timothy Poole, even Alex Jones, but Alex Jones has his own. He talking about clickbait, but to me, what we really want to do, for those of us who do, I don't want to comment on the stuff. It's still just too crazy. But I like to call it narrative analysis and commentary. Because there is no news. News is nothing more than, for the most part, especially the commentary, is narrative formation. In many ways, you have a whole bunch of things to report. You haven't got time for anything, so you report this instead of that. The choice of what you report creates a story about the world we live in. That story is the narrative. Because we are psychological beings, we live in narratives. We might live on a planet, but psychologically, we're in a living mythos, and with a storyline. We're in a real live kind of movie story. Call it what you want. And what the news is narrative management, creation, formation. And so for me, what people like Styx, Lionel, Sargon, and many others are doing is they're analyzing the narrative, and they're commenting on the narrative. And of course, as somebody who's also in the story, one of the characters in the big story, they have their opinions and they speak. But to me, a big part of doing things better is using different language that is neutral, that actually tells us. Once again, the news is not the news. The news is narration formation. So my 2 cents of that's like a slice of the pie. Actually, that's a slice of the pie that I could say that I would be able to get away with saying the least about. So another interesting story that because one of the ways people who like to do bad things do them is to stagger them so that there's enough of a temporal gap in the story that what are dot connecting parts of the story, because of the insertions of temporal other things, the dots don't connect. I agree with you, Suzanne. Completely. I have almost nobody I can watch. I'm glad to hear that. If you can barely watch anybody, it means you're actually sane. So in the narrative formation, let me not scratch my face on camera. I'll pick up that thought again. Maybe I need to roll a cigarette. I usually like to roll my cigarette before I start the show. Hello, Jet Pet. Yeah, to me, yeah, political narrative. I guess it is political, but man, we can call it politics because there still is politics. But man, we have to realize politics is where the schizophrenia begins. That's where the psychosis begins. Politics is psychosis. And hopefully I'll get my train of thought back. Oh yeah. So we're now in the stirring. The stirring is the 5th season of the year, the one between winter and spring. It occurs between Candlemas and the first day of spring. It comes from Tolkien. That's a Middle Earth thing, and so occasionally Radagast will have a moment of Middle Earth. Hello, Blue Blood. Guitar. So anyway, if we look back about a month or 6 weeks ago into the kind of depths of winter, if you recall, there were some really nasty, we'll call them flus going around. Matter of fact, apparently this last flu season, I guess we're coming out of it now, was one of the deadliest in a while. I went through it for 4 days. I mean, it held on to a lot of people for a long time. But I have to admit, those were 4 miserable days. But rarely had I encountered an ill. First of all, I don't generally get ill because of my immune system. But I got ill, and besides, and I was kind of getting whacked a few times, but that one had an intelligence to it. It had an anger, and it was like death. It had death in it. I could feel the spirit of death in the virus, or whatever it was. Anyway, so there's an article on Zero Hedge called, Fact or Fear Mongering. I'm just going to read the title. Fact or Fear Mongering, World Health Chief warns of imminent global pandemic. Okay? And they say things, as humanity is more vulnerable in the face of epidemics because we're more connected, we travel, blah, blah, blah. We know that it is coming, but we have no way of stopping it. That's an interesting thing. Although maybe that's kind of like, we have no way of stopping, and then all of a sudden, as everybody's going, oh my God, this sounds terrible, they go, but we've developed a vaccine. Okay, so for some people, it's going to be like, oh, we're saved. And other ones know what the script is, and they go, oh, okay, so we put out this headline, and then we come up with the vaccine, job accomplished. But that would be normally where our cynicism would take us. Matter of fact, we've almost been trained. We've almost been, kind of Pavlovian trained that, if they're declaring an illness, we wait for the we're waiting for that announcement that they have a vaccine developed. In other words, we're on to their game, aren't we? Well, we're on to their game unless they change it the moment they think we're on to it. I mean, they're not the smartest. The smart ones amongst us are way smarter than them, but they're smart. It's above average intelligence for sure. So they can outsmart a lot of people. So, why do I bring up the flu that happened? And I'm not the only one who said I think this flu came out of the skies. In other words, not only are they mixing in barium and aluminum, but now they can mix in biological agents. I read it in a lot of places. People would say, I swear that stuff fell out of the sky. Me too. So, they might put out the vaccine anyway. But again, I'm really wondering. I'm reading, this thing. We know that the globalists are feeling a little challenged, and that would be threatened. And I'm just wondering if the winter flu virus, and if it was by air dispersal, air delivery, whether or not that wasn't a test rollout for effectiveness. How much of the you drop something from the sky, how much of the population, got it? What was the lethality of it? I mean, it's all kind. Again, you conduct experiments and then you get your data back from your experiment, and then usually you will do another experiment, or sometimes experiments lead up to the atomic bomb that blew up in the test bed out west was an experiment. The dropping of the two on Japan was real, but was a continuation of those experiments. I mean, they no longer experiment, but again, there's always data. How many died? What was the size of the blast? I mean, we're talking about non-humans, in human form, who, death is a metric. It's data. So when I read this, them talking about this, worldwide epidemic, I'm really wondering if there might not be an air delivery later in the year. So things are. I don't know if you noticed, like in the past couple of months, it's like you really almost can't keep up with what's coming out in the news. The rapidity with which the new narrative elements insert themselves. You ain't seen nothing yet. I don't recall saying nukes weren't a hoax. I'm not sure. You don't have to be sorry to me. I mean, I know I mentioned Hiroshima, but again, it's a blast. I didn't mention. It wasn't about radioactivity. It was about yield. Bombs dropped, people dead. I mean, I know about hormesis. When I went up when I lived in New York, I went up to one of the spas up there, and they actually had one spring that they had to put a sign on because it had radium in it. It had naturally occurring radium in the water. And they actually told you, as long as you don't drink a whole lot of it, it's got health properties. And I already knew about hormesis, so I only had a gallon jug, but I, treated myself to a glass of it every day. I mean, apparently, there is certainly some bad things happening in the Pacific, but radioactive waste also has things like cadmium and, toxic metals. They don't, they're lead is real toxic. Doesn't have to be radioactive. So again, yeah, they do lie. You might be exposed to something that they'll say is radiation, but what else is there? Yeah. I mean, have you seen look at the plant and animal life around Chernobyl? It's actually turned into a wildlife preserve because it took away human activity and it allowed nature to return. And that's probably one of the saddest things, is that humans have become nature's worst enemy. And that is very sick. And we didn't do that on our own. It was part of the plan. You can tell by reading Genesis or any of the Sumerian texts that somebody created a human that was more workable for them. So they created this other human that would then join the rest of the population and infect it. And the infection has been pretty much worldwide. You kind of have to go and, maybe the Dogon people are not infected. Tribes in the Amazon aren't infected. But much of the world has taken in that genetic strain. And it's created problems. It's created disconnections. It's created a human that is the worst thing, is the biggest adversary this planet and all other life forms on this planet have. Their biggest enemy is the activities of us. How sick is that? The only thing wrong with this planet is human activity. How fucked up is that? Oh, is the topic nuclear energy now? I don't want to be off topic here. Is that a joke, Fukushima? I like it. I'll enjoy my cigarette and maybe I'll learn something about radioactive stuff. Yeah, the thorium reactors are pretty interesting stuff. I wouldn't, Deborah, I wouldn't say we're parasites, and that's why I said human activity. We're engaging in parasitical activity. We're engaging in activity. We're engaging in the activity of the infection, which is not native to this planet. Where humanity has gotten infected to the point where it doesn't realize this is their planet. Again, there's a narrative that comes out of the Judeo-Christian mythos that is completely mirrored into this reality from who we are, what our place is on this planet, in this galaxy. Suzanne, I would love to remove myself from the masses because I behave differently, but we're us. And, like I have little flashlights like this that run on 3 AA batteries, and they have to be changed relatively quick, and I have 2 of them. Fortunately, I've been using rechargeable batteries since 2010. My speaker that I use runs on 2 AA batteries. I have to put new ones in every 3 days. Fortunately, I always have freshly recharged batteries to put in there. When I remember in the old days, you'd get something and it said batteries not included. I wish they still did that. Because now when I buy something and it has two of those toxic piece of shit lead mercury batteries in them, what am I supposed to do with that? Okay, so Here it is, if 2 of those batteries come into my house via something new I bought, I'm like, ew. But there are people who are buying those 24 packs of throwaway batteries because they're going through batteries all the time. Does it occur to them to do rechargeable? So that's, I mean, this is the kind of parasitic behavior that I'm talking about that most people engage in. Most people are not, oh, I like indoor plumbing. Yeah, but are you making sure that what you put in your toilet is being responsibly handled? So good evening, Reemsy. I'm glad you could join us. It's funny you mentioned supercapacitors because I've been spending my time in guitar amp electronics world, and it's resistors and capacitors that shape your tone, and learning, and it's been fun because you're learning kind of the exoteric part of how you tell electricity what to do. But as I'm looking at this, I'm going, it is electricity has memory. None of what we do to electricity would be possible if electricity didn't remember what we tell it each time we tell it to do something. It's amazing. It is most amazing. And now I realize that's what they say. Electricians know how to make electricity do things, but they don't know exactly how or why. Tesla knew. This squishy one is here. So anyway, this the poem that I wish to. This is probably, it's not a poem. It's prosatry, and I'm glad you're here now, Niche, because this is something I would have wanted you to hear. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Blue Bud. I know. I right now I'm still teaching myself about capacitance. I can't go there yet, but I've already kind of had that spirit, kind of whistling to me from a couple of blocks away. Oh yeah, Dolar's the modern day guy. I agree with you totally, Suzanne. So this, once again, John Lash is reading it, but John Lash didn't write it. And it is, to me, it's an interesting story about us and our creator, our mother. And I don't think I've ever heard more accurate depiction of this relationship in words than this reading. So I really hope you can take the 6 minutes or something that it takes for John to read it, and take it on board. See if you can go where this. I mean, his words will take you to Mama. Whether or not you want to go there, or whether or not the words are meant to take you there, I don't know. But I'm gonna play that. I already have it queued up. All I have to do is click play. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put Mama on the screen here. At least an artist's rendition of the situation. That's not Mama. And then I'm going to play that piece. I'm going to shut off my mic, or else it'll create some kind of feedback.
Donna Me Priega by Guido Cavalcante. Because a lady asks me, I would tell of something that happens often and with force, and brings change upon itself, which I call love, so that those who deny they can sense its truth may, in this way, come to know about it, I believe. Not that I hope any whose hearts are base by mere reasoning may assume to comprehend it, for lacking the sense of its own evidence, I have not skill nor wish to offer proof how it proclaims where it originates. What is its power and its potency? its essence and its innate movement so delighting that it makes us call it love, or how anyone can make it show itself. In that realm where memory resides, it assumes form in self-defining light that shines, diaphanous, out of a dark, conflicting hue. Then it holds still, so as to be created and sensuously named, divined in the soul and willed in the heart. It comes from what is seen as it so intends, which is then taken to the waking mind as a pure subject, fixed and abiding, yet even in this, not to be possessed, because no one can lessen its pure feeling, its resplendent and perpetual effect, not sensed merely for delight, but in the contemplation of how incomparable it truly is. Devoid of power except in how it gains a perfection it alone can measure, such as cannot be reasoned, but is felt, I say. Beyond salvation, it keeps to its own way, and holds intention worth as much as reason, yet barely shows how it likes what it lacks, thus by its power seeks its own undoing. Since in its strength that power hides the hindrance that lends to love the bent of contradiction, though never turning it against itself, but measuring how perfectly it varies, so random none can say how it invites a continuity not to be commanded, and likely to be taken for abandon. It is released when will so far exceeds all that is not within its natural grain, it can no longer hide in resignation. So it moves compellingly, and running through its colors laughs off our fear, then turns away as it subsides a bit, sunk in its own veracity. Only the courageous come to know it, a feeling ever new, an ever-moving breath that drives the self-reflecting mind to look into another form, uneasy, but roused as if it broke into a blaze. None can imagine it who cannot test it, for it moves not unless it moves as drawn or as released when its own pulse is touched with confidence of knowing, great or small. Its seeming a mere surface guards its nature, so it compares to pleasure, which I reckon can't keep it hidden once it's joined up with it. Even before its beauty startles like a dart, it bores through trepidation, making way for whoever may deserve to follow its direction. And not by knowing how its sheer appearance comprises light of such contrasting moods, and vivifies without becoming obvious, but by being led by what flows from it. Beyond the shades of all divided essence, hewn from the darkest hue, its radiance outshines every and all deceit called worthy of faith, that from this source alone is born compassion. You, my song, may go forth well protected where it please you, for you are so adorned to be praised, surpassing reason, by all those who sense your intimation. But for the others who cannot, you have no inclination.
Well, oh, where am I? Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed that. I had put it on. I'd gone to. I enjoy listening to John Lash when I'm going to sleep. His cadence works for me, and the ideas that he presents send me off onto journeys. When I heard that last night, and it was, and then it ended, and I almost got out of bed to play it again. But I said, no, I'll play it again tomorrow, and I knew that I would play it tonight. I've never read anything that kind of took me where that reading took me. Hello, Mari. And so I thought to share it, hoping that perhaps that delivery might affect hearts in a way that I frustratingly have been unable to do. And I am very frustrated that I have not been able to move any hearts, but apparently I'm trying to do something I'm not meant to do. Which is why I want to kind of, go back to more mystic brews with the occasional commentary, but I really want to get much more into my music. I want to get a little bit more into gear conversation, but I also want to what I've kind of been directed, advised to do is I have a bunch of songs that need either words completely or words to be finished or words to be rewritten. And that since I seem to have an urgency to bring my gnosis to others, to share it, so you can go, oh, okay, well, we can kind of compare notes. This format I consider to be not working out so well. So my advice is to get into the music, start making. There's a concept I have for doing songs for performance songs for YouTube, and that's going to actually be part of a project on YouTube for me. And but the thing is, all of the things that I felt moved to start a live stream to say, what I should do is move them into the words of the songs that I will present. Because this way here, even if the words fall flat, they'll be delivered in a lively format. So, if the song is liked, if the song is enjoyed, then mission accomplished. It doesn't matter whether they like the beat, the way I sang it, the way I played it, the words that the words could just be words to a song and not what I would hope there to be. But then it doesn't matter. It's a whole package. If the package is received, the package is received. So that's kind of like where I want to take my energy. Hello, Darcy. But it's also part of, we need to take, we have this YouTube platform. There have been people who have gotten knocked off the web and they put their stories up. We all kind of, we all have the horror stories. Well, those horror stories are the things not, like, in other words, there are obviously certain things currently. I think YouTube is working on getting these easily offended people either educated or or something done about it. I think YouTube is not going to stay quite as crazy as it is. But we, the people, have a platform that we can actually kind of organize. And again, when it comes to the censorship thing, right now a lot of that has more to do with, you know, what you're saying, and also it isn't also so much what people say in their videos, is what they title their videos. You know, they want a lot of eyes, so they go for this, you know, saucy, clickbaity title, and it catches attention, and next thing you know, they have a strike and they're gone. So maybe we should be a little less P.T. Barnum in how we title things. But I just figure, you know, we'll get this figured out, and because there's good people on both sides. There's just, but there has to be communication. And fortunately, there are people in the YouTube community with huge followings, people like Stick, Sex, and Hammer, that speak to these people, and then they make videos and let us know about the conversations they have. So I get a chance to keep up on what is the, you know, the health of YouTube as a platform. And I do believe it's been great that people are going to Gab and also to DTube and other places, because that lets YouTube know that it thought that it could call all the shots. Well, no, you get to call the shots on your playing field, but if you want us on your playing field, you better get better referees. So I really see YouTube is a place for us to create our own, you know, basically our own TV. To use it in a similar fashion, I still think, you know, it's still. I still think it's good to get away from keyboards and monitors and go out into nature a lot more. But since we do spend a lot of our time in front of some form of screen, why not make it the screen that we have greater control of, that we are part of what the content is. So well, apparently, that's the terminated accounts have affected my subs too. I've lost, you know, not quite 10 subs in the last week or so, and I think a big part of that is every once in a while, you know, they regularly remove YouTube. You know, I guess you have, you know, people to make a post, they have to have some kind of Google YouTube identification, and then if that expires, they get rid of it, and then if that expired person was a sub of yours, then you've lost a sub. I just refreshed. Okay. Well, it's funny, the whole time I do this, there's a big when it says stream health, I always have a question mark. Occasionally I get bad. I never get usually good. I'm missing our friend Moose tonight, but I'm quite sure he's napping. I really love that guy. Good, just it's great to have people you can talk to. I got a few other people like I mentioned, but I don't want to embarrass anybody or leave anybody out. So, and last night I guess I spent 5 or 6 hours watching tutorials on video editing with the software I have, which is Shotcut. And then starting a project. Actually, it was to edit the last Weber speaker thing I did. I'm realizing if I'm going to try and do something a little promotional, I need to get away from some of the stream of thought tangents I take in my own personal material. But here I'm trying to assist a company I like, and they probably would appreciate if I don't take jabs at their competitors. I'm quite sure they like to have a friendly relationship with the people in the same business as them. So I edited out some of my Aspie moments and cut it down by 10 minutes. So that was my kind of my first experience with video editing at that kind of scale. And trying, when you cut out one piece and then you come into your next piece, even, trying not only the word, but, not coming in on when your face is in one of those transitional, moments. So, but I won't be, I doubt I would use that in my Mystic Brews or all that other stuff. I kind of like the organic feel. I mean, if you were, I haven't posted this new video. And the other reason I wasn't video editing as much is maybe I need to configure things, but I end up with, like, my basic file might be like, let's say 200 megabytes. And then after I edit it and make it 10 minutes shorter, it's 450 megabytes. And that takes me twice as long to upload. 2.5 times long to upload. But so I'm realizing, with certain things I won't need to edit. But if I'm going to do like the Weber things and try and do something like that, just to, have fun and try to not embarrass the company that I'm trying to help. Some video editing is there, and so the choppiness. I mean, you watch Mark Dice; it's chop after chop after chop. And he's quite popular. So obviously, people are not jarred by that video editing, and that's probably one of the reasons why it took me a little time to video edit, is wanting to not make it so jarring. Not just cutting it there, but finding is there a little, within the space of maybe a second or a second and a half, sometimes a half a second, is there anything to play with there? And learning how to fine tune it, realizing that you can move it forward a frame by hitting the side arrow and, all those fine adjustments. So that's what I set myself to do before I put myself to bed at 7 o'clock in the morning. But I got it done. And so teaching myself the skills that I will need if I'm going to be doing slightly different things. And I've turned down employment. There's a local, the Hotel Floyd, Floyd is this kind of like little tiny Appalachian Woodstock. And so, like, the fact, in a lot of places you want to work at a hotel, like, you have to cut your hair, you have to wear a tie. I'm at Hotel Floyd. To me, the fact coming, it's almost like when people would go to Woodstock, New York, which wasn't where the festival was, but there was the town of Woodstock. And so if the tourists that went to Woodstock didn't see some hippies, they'd be very disappointed. So I figured, hey, if I worked at the Hotel Floyd, people are coming in and they go, oh man, they even have a hippie at the front desk. And he's real smart, and he takes really good care of you. But I'm not sure. I don't think I want to get involved in that. Basically, my friend's wife went there as kind of like, to help with the chef. Then they fired the chef and hired her. Now she's running the kitchen, having new stoves come in. She's become like a manager. Then she got her husband to work a couple of nights there. The 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. That's a shift I could live with. So he's in there and already. So now that they're kind of realizing, you mean I don't have to work with just the young people around here. There's some older people that are still willing to work and bring all those skills that we used to know in the workplace. I mean, it's amazing. They have people working the front desk who are giving their friends rooms for nothing and then going to the rooms to drink and party with their friends. I mean, So it's almost like I think they probably, any more in that house you live in like you? Oh yeah, I got a roommate. He's real sharp. It's like, well, if he wants to have a job, tell us. We'll give him the job application. So it's kind of funny. And even with my concept of, I like the idea of there even being like I mean, certain people might consider this intellectual property, but to me, getting it done is, the person who gets to own intellectual property gets to manage it. Yikes. But I mean, I like the idea of on YouTube of a performance category. Where people like do live performances. Joe from the Carolinas put up, he has a punk band, and he put up a set they did, and it went over really great. And I was thinking, hey, it'd be really cool. Hey, Joe, how about if I come down and visit you and we record a set and I join you on stage for a song or two, like kind of cross pollination. Hello, Kalendal, kind of, but all, they have to be performances. Some parts be live, but so I have two different ways of a way to allow myself to have non-live backing while I do the crucial parts live. So what I want to do is not only do the performance, but I want to show the way for others to do similar live performances. And then I thought how cool it would be to have, just like there's different categories. So, if people like, Sticks, Hex, Hammer, and Knowles news people I know are like in one category, you could have a category of performance category. If you do stand up, I don't, set it up in your own room, give yourself a backdrop and tell a bunch of jokes. Performance. And then I thought how cool it would be if, all right, so you have the performers, and then you have a group of people, critics. Like one YouTube category that criticizes, good or bad, just like all critics do, the live performances. And people go, oh, would you really want critics? If you're somebody who's doing something that you would like to get known, you have to realize there is no such thing as bad publicity. Led Zeppelin, who had their early albums completely lampooned by the critics, will be glad to tell you there is no bad publicity. And people, there is that kind of morbid curiosity of people. You tell somebody something is ugly and nasty, they have to check it out, and then they might come away with a different opinion. And then you could even have, the opinion people like the Sargons and the Styxes commenting on both the performers and the critics who criticize. I mean, there's so much room for interplay, and where we start, where we all start knowing each other across platforms, and where there's actually like this YouTube world where as everybody's dropping different names, it's like, oh, and certain people have huge name recognition. Some people, like myself, will have tiny name recognition. But, to me, there's so much room for us to do some real human things. And, if you create the buzz, if you create like this really functional buzz, the advertisers are going to go, well, how do we get in on this? And then the content can say, well, I'm not, I don't want my audience being exposed to blood pressure, basically, show me who you have that wants to advertise, that would advertise on my channel, and I'll tell them who I want to accept. So I just really see there's room, like on a platform like YouTube, to just really turn it into what we want it to be. But we get that through conversing with each other, strategizing, coming up with strategies for a presence. So I'm working a little bit with that, and one of my strategies was performance, and a group of critics, like people that would, their whole YouTube channel would be critiquing the performance YouTubes. Oh, the news. So from the news is saying Trump wants to dig into Australian superannuation. So if the news is saying it, probably isn't happening. I didn't say it isn't. I said probably isn't. Conditional word there. So that's what's kind of like on my future calendar. Mystic Brews, gear things. I'm not even, and I might even start another YouTube channel just for the gear stuff, but I'm not sure. And I have a name for it, but I'm not going to reveal it because it's really cool. I wouldn't want somebody to take my name, take the name I have. And if those of you who know me or might have seen me, in chats and the different things I type, would probably go, oh, he finally went there. Yeah, I read a little bit about that, and that basically what probably because of the sources, but there seems to be some involvement with the Clinton Foundation. The Clinton Foundation is turning out to be quite the octopus. Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing the Mystic and the Moose too. And that's the thing that that we will be doing every new moon. So that's that's once a month. Yeah, I mean I will stay busy. This might be the last live stream of Can You Hear Me Knocking? Just so you know that. Can't you hear me, Gnostic? I guess it is fading. I mean, the hangout has been great, but if I'm going to hang out, let me be authentic and pick a topic that we're all on board with. Oh yeah, yes, Anish. I thought you weren't here earlier. I had spoken about it earlier. The views are down, and like I said, the last week's live chat was a data stream that told me that I think I'm the only one who really thinks that what I'm doing here is important. So, as an entertainers are very sensitive to feedback. As I'm kind of talking to you, Niche, but not everybody was here. If you tell a joke and people don't laugh, there's a chance the joke sucked, or you got the wrong crowd. But either way, there's a mismatch. If you play a song and there's no applause, your song sucked, or you got the wrong crowd. Either way, there's a mismatch. So last week I was really, I was reading from, what I thought was important stuff, and the chat was, and I mean, I have to thank, I thanked, I don't know if Darcy was here earlier, I actually thanked Darcy because apparently whatever I was saying was so dreary that, Darcy was able to keep people, I guess, entertained. And so when I realized, wow, I must really suck. I must suck. Or just be boring. Not, I don't have to be harsh on myself. But obviously, I'm speaking to the wind. And that's about me. People, you're all the people I love, and I want to give you what you would like. And I have lots of ways of doing things. And so I kind of went into my heart. I asked God for guidance, and I didn't get just guidance. I said I got a dump truck of download. I mean, I'm giving like little bits of it. It was, I mean, I've papers filled with stuff I was writing. Yeah, how I said, I don't. No, Darcy, you don't understand. I mean, it was obvious because people were responding well to you. It wasn't like, hey, Darcy, can you calm down? It was like they were having a better time with you than they were with me, and that is totally acceptable. And that just tells me that I need to find something that's more engaging. That the topic that I thought might be the engaging one was obviously engaging for me, and then I realized, well, I guess I better take my focus outside myself a little bit because I didn't realize, you got to do it. I did it. I kind of got my data, my feedback, and I'm comfortable with it. Well, yeah. Well, I'll do. I'll I'll find other. I'll find other things. I mean, I'll more stuff that isn't so important to me. I mean, this can't. What the message? What I was trying to do here is immensely. It's the center of my world important to me. But that's all. But that's all I need to know is how important it is to me. So when you really like something, you try to share it. And something that has done so much for me, brought so much clarity, allowed me to stay as sane as possible in a completely insane world, and even make sense of insanity. There've been so many rewards from this path that I wanted to share it. And but there's some things are just meant for you to enjoy. And so I experimented, and I don't feel bad. I feel actually good. I feel good that I tried. I feel good that I put a real effort in, and I'm thrilled with everybody who's ever joined me here, and and I know we'll continue to join together. This is a community. I love it. No, 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 no. I didn't feel. No, I don't even. I mean, it's not even a. I mean, again, it's. I come from a performer's reality, where the audience lets you know whether or not you're giving them what they want. And so again, I look at, when I do things, I look at them from the same eyes I do when I'm on a stage. And fortunately, I haven't sucked a whole lot, but I know I know what it's like to underwhelm, and that's not nice. And it's certainly, and for the performer who actually puts some real energy and skin into the game, it's a little embarrassing. So, but but then the thing is, I return with with a different way, and get it right. And I kind of went through that a little bit earlier, but you weren't here yet, Niche. So, and there were other people. I don't know if Robin was here. There was a couple of people that weren't here, so it's good that I repeated it, because this is probably the last Can't You Hear Me Gnostic live stream. Thank you, Robin. Oh, the change is already in play, Darcy. I mean, again, I'm like on a mission, so I got to get, I want to get it right. The blue chicken stuff didn't really damage the community. The fact that the blue chicken stuff had a community meant that the community was damaged. Damaged goods. Only damaged goods could fall for that fucking story. I mean, we we need to lay off on the storytellers and focus on those who fell for the story. I mean, they'd be nothing without the people who thought their story had merit. And so to me, what the blue chicken story did was give us some honest feedback as to the mental and psychological and emotional health of a large portion of the alternative community. And it's not a great report. Hello, I am the one who works here now. Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, Blue chickens and people who believed in them. But, I mean, we got billions of people who believe in another system that is even sicker. So, I mean, you know, you want to pick on people believing in blue chickens. How about this other belief that billions of people hold on to? I mean, come on, man. The blue chickens is goofy. The other one is out and out rotten. So, you know, to move from the established system into the blue chickens is actually a move towards sanity. And that's how bad it is. That's how bad the organized institutions have it. In my opinion. Which I don't know how might be shared by a handful. That's where I probably should have turned off. My roommates gifted me an air purifier that had an ionizer. I'm not sure the ionizer is functioning. Certainly has managed some of the dust that accumulates on my keyboard. That's been nice. And provides a little, I don't know if it's a white noise. I think it's more of a pink noise for the TV set that sometimes plays. Yeah, there is a balance, but again, it's a balance I've done all my life. I've been performing since I'm 14. I was and since I was late to puberty, probably one of the reasons I didn't age so much, I actually was being paid and already entertaining people before I was technically entering adulthood. And then once I entered adulthood, the music got pretty interesting. Okay, please call me Benjamin. All right. Oh. Okay, I will call you Benjamin. Yeah, balancing expectations. But again, that balancing expectations. I mean, you go before you get into it. It could be tricky. Once you're into it, you got to stay in a little bit. You want to make sure, because there is homeostasis. So, there will be wobbles. But, the live chat is a good, a good interest, because there'll be tangential stuff riffing off of, what you're doing. And then there's when the chat just divorces itself from the speaker, and that's not the chat's fault, that's the speaker's fault. I mean, if you're going to take the stage, you got to have, you either own it and make it worth people's while, or get off the stage, come back in another mask, or yield it to somebody else. Hello, Craig. You don't need to give yourself away so much, Benjamin. Yeah, music is amazing. And that's the world I'm going to be diving into. The musical world. Because the musical world is also part of the world of community. And part of what's kind of fun for me, this redirection of my energy. In other words, I still have the same thing in my heart that I want to put into words to offer to people. But now I'm going to do it in with verse, meter, and rhyme. With music behind it, with music, where you fit the words to what the song is trying to tell us. And where, the music that is largely going on right now is the soundtrack for insane times. I mean, it's a soundtrack to support the insanity. And I think we need a soundtrack that embraces and supports sanity. And so that's what I'll be doing with my music. You know, again, I'm a, I have a, you know, very humble subscriber base. But again, I'm just gonna. The numbers don't matter. This is who I've been given. You people are my blessings, and I will go get creative about how to put something to offer people, you know, in the common thing to be a, you know, if I'm going to set myself up in this performer entertainer thing, which I embrace. I am an entertainer. It's part of my soul energy. And so in many ways, I feel that this everything that's happened here has been a very positive nudging towards where the real point of power, you know, from where we have the most leverage to do. Like in my case, I want to share my heart. That's, you know, what I want to do. And putting the same words into a soundtrack and a performance. You know, I don't know how to stand in front of a camera or a mic and just stand there. I don't know how to do that. And that was, I don't even know how to sit in a chair in school and do that half the time. Which is why for this Aspie, music at such a young age was such a gift. Because now you could take all those goofy antics, put them on a stage, and you're a star. So it's pretty funny. You know, you act out on the floor. You know, you do the same thing on the floor next to everybody. You know, stop being retarded. Stop, you know, whatever. You do the exact same thing on a platform 2 feet above everybody else, where everybody's focused, and you're the shit. So it's, you know, that's the whole thing. You know, you can do the exact same thing, but it's situational. And if you pick the situation, you're gold. And of course, it challenges me. I mean, it's going to be a lot more work to put together the soundtrack, however humbly I do it, and then perform it. I mean, there's a lot more work than that, than kind of having my thoughts together, using a couple of days to get some ideas, turning on the camera, sitting in my chair, and go, okay, we have, you know, showtime. To put together performance pieces, it's going to be a lot more work. But that's where I've been nudged, and I've accepted the assignment. And you know something, especially, you know, those of us who, you know, do kind of public stuff like this, because we're all human, we're all going to mess up. In this sacred environment, in this sacred space, screwing up doesn't feel embarrassing. And to me, it also, when we get to show our dignity, we get to show our creativity, we get to be real in front and authentic in front of each other. And that leads to greater intimacy. And that creates stronger bonds. And, you know, since I have live streaming figured out, you know, I can be a little impulsive. So, you know, sometimes I just go, you know, I won't call it Can't You Hear Me Gnostic. It's a live stream. You know, I'll pick up, like I picked, you know, what's my topic tonight? Oh, what the world needs now. There, hello, Fractal Truth. Yep, And but you know, being a human is making honest mistakes. And to me, honest mistakes are not the ones that you are constantly getting yourself into. Honest mistakes, or you know, we kind of know what that means. We all know the people we watch do the same thing over and over again, and they want to wave the victim card, and then you take it and you do one of those hard throws at it, back at them. You ever meet somebody who can throw like playing cards like knives? Less fuckery. I've run out of water. While I was playing the John Lash thing, I went out and got a little bit of water. I didn't want it to end, and I wasn't in the room because a little more. It might have been a little more dead air than is acceptable. Some dead air, obviously, is acceptable. So I have to sip this because I really do want another bit of a cigarette. But it really is a joy that we gather for these live streams. And sometimes I do get quiet because I like to look into the chat. Because that's where the chat is, where the community is. It isn't sitting in my chair. I'm just one of the community who happens to be, you know, the broadcaster of the moment. It's so funny because I'm on a playback, and I don't mug for the camera. I mean, you know, like as an intention. It's just it's just my face. Hey, what's wrong with your face? I'm born that way. But I mean, I really am going to try and find maybe, you know, maybe there's some other there are other YouTubers who actually have larger audiences, and I just would love to get the idea. I mean, a performance channel I think would just be so cool. And because again, you know, we're humans, so that performance channel will probably have some outstanding stuff, and then we'll have everything down to, you know, I think they're occasionally, who knows, you know, so somebody who's tone deaf or something. But and that's what the critics will be for. I mean, I really think that would be such a piss. I mean, I really do. Performers and critics. And then you have the commentators, you know, those big guys, and they say, "Hey, man, you know, when you're busy putting your opinions in the world out there, don't forget to, you know, take comment on the greater YouTube community." And now there is a fairly interesting phenomena happening on YouTube, and it's not huge, but it's, you know, it has a fairly like a presence of around 1,500 at any given time on a live stream that's been running for a couple of weeks now. I think it's called We the People Soapbox or something. And look, you know, I guess you could say it's largely right-wing patriots, but it's really they're following the Q drops. So there's like actually a live stream running 24/7 and has now for 2 or 3 weeks. There's some dedicated people who keep it running 24 hours, and you know, and then they have a live chat, and you know, and they have it on slow mode so you can actually read it. But I've never seen, in the early days you could see it in the 800s. Now I've never seen it under 1500 because I check in a couple of times a day. And part of the reason I do so is I want to read the chat, because any live chat, especially one that has thousands of people in it, is data. I mean, if you want to know, like, what is a given population, like, that's a demographic. So what is the psychological, emotional, and spiritual health of this demographic? Well, you got 1,500 of them, and with a couple of hundred of them opining every moment. So you have all of this data about a specific, demographic by people who identify with whatever they call themselves. And in the very early going, when I was a couple of days old, maybe a week old or something, there was a lot of like reading comments and then pulling hair, thoughts of suicide, a little hyperbole there. And it's just like, I better stop reading this while I still have a few surviving neurons. I mean, this stuff was like, could kill brain cells. But with an occasional, like, okay, so it isn't just a zoo. So as I check in day by day, and then I've checked in the last couple of days, it's still a little goofy, but man, I have seen the language has gotten less polarized. You could say that many people might have arrived there as kind of like this is my right. So you could say they arrived there leaning this way. More and more the language is about, we need to get rid of these divisions. We need to talk to each other. There are people who are above us that are doing a lot of interpretation, and then they're pitting us against each other. So I was and the numbers have grown also. So that was heartening for me to see sanity, like where, plenty of doses of complete goofiness, but to see more sanity. And sometimes, I even recognize some of the names, and you could see people developing in this process of doing a specific activity together, which is decoding the Q stuff. With, again, whether it's complete, psyop, the fact, again, it's a community focused on one thing. Thousands of people joining a chat focused on one thing. I mean, the what ifs and the suppositions are from every point on a circle, but they're all throwing towards the same target. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive. Regardless of any, I mean, I don't care if it was Antifa. I mean, let's say it was an Antifa thing. So when you first get there, we got to kill all the Nazis and whatever and blah, 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 blah. And then over the weeks, you start saying, you know what? We need to talk to each other. This is a bunch of nonsense. We have more in common than we have against each other. I mean, if you see, again, to me, it's like, it doesn't matter where you're jumping into, where it isn't a 0 point, to see that there's movement and to see thousands of people involved in working something out that they feel impacts their future. So now people are getting together and realizing what we do now impacts then. Wow. That's changing stuff a little bit. And again, it's not the subject matter, it's the behavior and this realizing that we need to be the think tanks. Because the ones that claim themselves to be think tanks, we know are stink tanks. Who knows, maybe I'll do a live stream at this time next week and we'll call it The Gang's All Here or something. I mean, I will always have something to say. Well, you know, speculum, that is exactly where I'm seeing a parting of the ways in the language. There is the less abstract thinking who kind of come in with like a program. And then but I'm seeing more and more reasoned language. And, and so what I'm seeing actually is a group think that isn't closed. A group think or people trying to form a more nimble and dynamic and responsive group mind. Pretty fascinating. It's been pretty fascinating to watch, and might I say, mildly encouraging. YouTube has been a prime example of postmodern decadence, but that's because we have been postmodern decadent people, bringing our postmodern decadent programming to the channel. That's changing, and I think YouTube could become something great. I really do. Of course, you'd have to get rid of the jerks, but I think if it becomes legitimate enough, if the people like even myself, instead of trying to up my game, YouTube become a really serious place to go, where the information is not given with the authority. We're discussing a narrative. Even the idea of realizing that we live in a narrative, and it's almost like telling fish they live in water. Once we realize we live in a narrative, we might get down to realizing that, and then we start managing it. Something like, other than YouTube, but like YouTube, and I actually think that in many ways the best candidate might be YouTube itself. But I like the movement to the other places, because YouTube cannot feel omnipotent. If they feel omnipotent, it's like, they feel that they're in control, and people are just like, okay, you can have, you want your toys, here are your toys, we're going else place. Is it as good for us? No, it isn't. But we're not here to be your bitch. We produce content. We're why you guys have a platform. It's win-win. It's always like that. You provide us a platform. You have a reason to even be providing it. It's like, what good's a stage with nobody performing on it? What good's a storefront that says for rent? And I just really think the calming of the language, and stop we don't want enemies. I mean, if anybody who's invested in being an adversary, well, I mean, we can take that too. There's different ways to handle adversaries. Some ways it's just you don't give them any energy because they survive on it. Because, again, it's got to be situationally appropriate. Darcy just reminded me I have a half a quart of yogurt I need to finish eating. Yeah, that's what I would like. But something, Niche. I'm talking to you, Niche, because what you just wrote. I think YouTube itself could possibly be that platform. To me, it's a matter of whether they want it, and then they have to realize that they don't get to call the shots. I mean, again, we set up agreements, and then everybody plays like human beings and doesn't, just plays it straight. I mean, you know, you can have a bunch of, you can have, look, you can have a bunch of social justice warriors that are at the censorship place in YouTube, and you just say, look, here's what it's really like to be an adult. It's to know what you don't like, and that you might like to do that, but you know it isn't right, so you don't do it, while you still hold your own valid feeling about the material. And you're not, and you don't feel like, well, I don't know what you might, I don't need to agree with you. That's how you feel. That's how you feel. All we would ask is that you conduct yourself fairly in this position that you're in. Nobody's asking you to change your mind, but don't be a fuck about things. Don't be like, I don't like that, so I have the power to make things go away. And then the other thing, they also have to like kind of train these people that there are people who know that if they make complaints to YouTube, they can shut down a site. So that these people have to be made hip. That look, don't let these people who are just out to drop a site have that kind of power because you're doing it. Do a little research. They make claims. Make sure that their claims or assertions are factual. And then if you have a reason to drop a site, delete a site, then in justification. But this isn't like, oh, I got 2 complaints, so I gave him a strike. You know, it's well, did you do a little investigation? Well, I was involved in a heavy text. You know, we got to clean that kind of nonsense up. You know, the whole YouTube purge has been clumsy and heavy-handed, and there's been blowback to YouTube, Google, Facebook, Facebook, I should say. Facebook usership, I guess, is down 18% over, I don't know, it's a month, a year, whatever. The world is growing up. You know, how long has Facebook been around? We've made our contacts. You know, you can use the messenger, but why give YouTube any content? Not YouTube, Facebook. That's my, you know, that's just how I roll. You know, people say, oh, I'm on Facebook. Okay, whatever. And a lot of people's, their businesses, you know, are a big part, you know, a big part of their free promotion is Facebook, so. And what I like about calling it Facebook, you only got to change one letter. Just change the A after F into an E, and you have Facebook. And anytime I think I'm feeling harsh and I see Mark Zuckerberg's face, the first thing I think of is feces. Can't look at Mark Zuckerberg and not think about feces. Largely a nice handful to throw at him. Not only have I not seen the Allison COVID, I haven't heard of the Allison COVID. I mean, the last week, I have really been I've been immersing myself in music education, learning about circuits, resistors, capacitors, tone pots. I mean, how not to get electrocuted while doing all this. I'm hoping, Niche, that you're going to give me just like a little something about who Allison or anybody. It doesn't have to be Niche. Oh, oh, oh. I think the reason why the event meme has legs, maybe even wings, is because there is an event sitting there in the unmanifest. And the reason it's sitting there is the birth of it isn't 100%. But it's sitting there. So when you have that, like Cliff High and his stuff, people intuitively know things. People intuitively know there's an event sitting there in the unmanifest. They know it. They don't know what it is. So the fact that this group will have this event and this group will have this event, there's a few events floating around there, all being called the event. And I really believe the reason why the event is a fairly easy sell or an easy insertion into our language is because it's sitting there in our subconscious. But what that event is, oh, man, there's no ascension cannot occur on the human level without being ascended. The planet, the ascension energies are everywhere. The ascension energies are huge, and the galactic wave is something that's coming, and it's supposed to come in two pieces, kind of like one to prepare you, and then one that'll go. And again, I don't doubt that these waves come, but what will their effects on human psychology be? Because right now, human psychology is owned. There are billions of human minds owned by an alien narrative. That's a formidable obstacle. And I really wonder if the best event isn't something that cracks that. Because cracking that free, letting people approach creation unprogrammed would help things a lot. The programming is the programming started conversations over you while your diapers were being changed. She put one up, I guess last night. I listened to a portion of it. I like those conversations, but last night I was somewhere between deep woo and resistors and capacitors. But the thing is, the resistors and capacitors keep me in the woo because I'm working with this medium called electricity. And as you're learning, electronics teach you how to direct it, you're realizing that the whole reason you can direct energy is because it will, as you suggest things through these various resistors and capacitors, it seems happy to comply. It is amazing the amount of different kinds of information you can load into an electron stream, which is called an electrical signal. You can dump sine waves, square waves, sawtooth waves. You can retrieve them, remove them, and you can add them to the signal and still get a signal out the other end. It is amazing. Electrons are like this recording tape. They're like water. It has memory. And I'm as I'm learning electronics, I'm looking at the behavior of this thing called electricity, and I'm going, this is amazing. Electronics is nothing more than working with this live etheric being, and that wants to get involved and help. So you draw these circuits, and it goes, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. It's just amazing. Electricity is alive, and it records like water. Matter of fact, it seems to record. I mean, it seems to as soon as you tell it something, it's there. It's the it's the ether. It's what electricity is the electrons coming out of the ether and forming into streams, and then you have a current. All right, yeah, Heath. Well, that's basically what I'm instead of Heath kit, I'm going to do Weber kits, or there's other kits of classic Fender models. But because I'm who I am, I look at these schematics and go, this is brilliant, but I want to put this power with this preamp. All kinds of things can come to me because I'm a tone blender. And then, of course, there's the whole thing of speakers. So, and for me, this whole re-involvement with music and the tone and the sound is all about creating the soundtrack for our ascension. Now, we are ascending. Ascension is presented as a destination. We're on a journey. The destination is where it is. But we're on the journey part of it. So we're going to be in ascending processes. The earth is in an ascension process. And that's one of the driving forces of me and my Sophia Gaia, and the whole connection with the earth is so that you can tune in with a being that will be ascending and, kind of get on board with it. Her. It doesn't make a difference. So, I want to get involved in music, and I said, and the words I write are going to be all about ascending, connecting, humanity taking its sovereignty back. Humanity realizing it is the sovereign. There's no sovereigns over us. Thanks, Lee. Thanks for pimping my thumbs. I appreciate that greatly. I mean, I actually look for people to thumbs up. I try. I don't like to thumbs up something that I think is stink, but I almost never give a thumbs down. It's not like I don't ever, but man, a thumbs down has to you have to have asked for it. You have kind of had to ask the people that to swallow a big one. That's or you're so clueless you shouldn't be putting shit on YouTube. I mean, I need to give you some feedback. Whoever put that up there, you need to know, like what I did. Figure it out a little better. Oh, yeah, sonoluminescence. That is something worth, I mean, I know what it means. But it is something to get a little more language about. I belong to Minds.com, and so I go looking for people that I regularly support. Like a woman, there's a poster there named Mama Dini. I try to make sure I always get a thumbs up on her. There's another one there, and then anything that I'm glad that they put in front of my eyes, or that I thought, it's like this is old news, but maybe other people look. I mean, I look to give thumbs up, because again, they're free. They're free, and people appreciate them. I mean, it's like, oh, I would help out people more, but I don't really have that kind of job. There's not everything that we can do that can make people feel a little better costs even a microcent. So spreading joy authentically. It isn't like, oh, let's just go out and thumbs up. No, that's feedback. So if you think, again, if somebody put in an honest effort, and or you liked even a little bit of it, and they didn't offend you with the rest of it, give them a thumbs up. They offended you, but something was all right, you can leave it alone, unless you want to give a mercy thank. And if you really got pissed off, then by all means, let that person know. No, man, what you're doing, at least not for me. Oh, don't let me get started on Mama Dini. Maybe, actually, it's funny how that came out in language ago. That's not exactly what I really want to say, but enough with that. Yeah, those mercy thumbs. If Nunu was nectar, for sure. I have hummingbird blood. Yeah, she does know how to play, doesn't she? I love it. No, Suzanne, you're supposed to say get a room. You're supposed to chastise the ones putting all the pheromones in the chat. Well, a specific spectrum of pheromone, because pheromones are pretty broad spectrum, but there is one group of pheromones has a certain notoriety. I used to joke back in my musician days about those mercy performances. And I used to joke that I would use them to get me into heaven. That if I caught any flack at the pearly gates, I go, how about them? I get in, right? Come on, I get in. So what, the alcohol helped? I get in. I'm out of water. So it's probably, well, it's been 2 hours and 14. This has been a really fun chat, and that's part because I had no real agenda other than to talk about changing the current one and doing something that I certainly excites me as something that I hope will excite you. I mean, there's different reasons to have a YouTube channel. To inform people is one, and but information is a form of entertainment. But boy, if I don't know how to deliver information, I do know how to entertain. And I just, I have songs that are stuck. It's like, I've been like a little bit of a constipated artist. I think this will be good. Cats love humans because we provide services and warmth. I mean, supposedly they can't find any genetic change in any real serious way, like between like domestic cats and wild cats. It seems like domestic cats were, one of the more diminutive of other cats that kind of calmed their feral nature and caught animals that they didn't want there and kind of ingratiated themselves so they could get let in the house. And if the hunting season got, or if they got a little lazy, they had somebody who, it's like, I'm not in the mood for chasing today. I think it's still cold out. Well, this person's going to feed me, so it almost looks like a certain of the small wildcats domesticated themselves because animals have smarts. And so their thing was to get in the house. And I mean, you know, somebody that you feed for years will still piss on something precious, and they know it. It ain't love. That's an abusive relationship. But boy, they do that cute good. They gaslight us like crazy. Little psychopaths. Okay, so anyway, at 2 hours and 17 minutes, and that, you know, that's the other thing. I mean, you know, for anybody who's not available for the live stream, I'm not sure. You know, I mean, 2 hours is not a bad video to partake in. As a matter of fact, a lot of times when some of the really good unfuckers discussions were on, I was glad they were like an hour and 40 minutes because they were really pulling stuff apart, and it was kind of just good to be able to eavesdrop on how they unpack things. I love dogs and cats. You know, people say, "Oh, you don't say very kind things about about." I mean, you know, again, my sense of humor is always in play, and also I have their number. I can, you know, I can love beings who I totally see right through them. It's not a problem. I mean, and to me, it's what's so amazing about us humans, that the way we can love when we're free to love, and that whole piece by that I played by John Lash, the theme of it was love, and that our Creator, you know, so I mean, Sophia means wisdom. If what the world needs now is love, sweet love, or real love, then love is wisdom. So wisdom is love. And in Greek, wisdom is Sophia. So Sophia is wisdom, Sophia is love. So what was beautiful was that in that reading, he was able to speak about love and Sophia as one and the same thing. Because they are one and the same thing. And that's why I said that even though he was using many metaphors, those metaphors need to be interpreted not symbolically, they need to be interpreted literally. Those were literal metaphors. There were no rabbit holes to go down with those metaphors. Those metaphors were about as straight and bare as beautiful words could be made. Hello, Moose. I'm glad you're here to close shop with us. I told you Moose was napping. I knew it. Somebody who bred frogs. Oh my God! Because sometimes I make allusions that there are certain portions of societies that breed with less care than dog breeders. Now we can say there are certain frogs are bred better than certain families. Wow, that's a scary thought. That's funny, Raksha, because you say sleeping off the last of the plague. Part of the discussion tonight was this whole thing about a worldwide pandemic might break out, and they're not prepared for it. Like a modern day plague. And what if that plague was the event? What if that's the event that everybody kind of senses? We're going to ascend. Yes, because you're going to die. You will surely ascend. I can't wait for the event. When's the event going to get here? Yeah, I know. I've heard that that we've already died type of thing. Let me tell you, I know I have a little idea of what my afterlife will look like, and this ain't it. This is not the afterlife that we can have. This is the world. They wouldn't be able to maintain. They wouldn't. The Archons could not, and the Yaldabaoth could not maintain this world without the real thing, because they can't make shit. All they can do is shit on what's real. So if it still sucks, it's because it's still real. And even John Lash really put it in good language. When people go, because the whole Gnostic concept of living operating within Sophia's dreaming is to say that we live in a hologram. But a hologram isn't a simulation. A simulation is the copying or mimicking of something real. That's why it's called a simulation. It's hard to have a simulation of a simulation. So, and that's really part. I blame a lot of that misunderstanding on how the Matrix, backhandedly, upside down, and backwards, tried to tell us that there's something going on without telling us the right way, and putting a lot of things backwards. About you really live in a simulation. And that the real world is in the bowels of something that looks like iron and concrete. I mean, what a dystopic world. And of course it ends, and that's one of the things, like people like Miguel Cano, who's got Aeon Gnostic Bite, and he was going, how a lot of what he considers Gnostic themed movies, and there is a certain Gnostic theming in a movie like The Matrix for sure. But taking a theme and tying it around your dick and taking the loose ends and sticking it up your ass is hardly the way to do things. Was that did you like that metaphor? Oh, I'm speaking outside the chat. I'm sitting here entertaining myself, and there's a serious conversation going on here. Michael Tessarian, I thought, had a brilliant way of kind of breaking down karma and dharma. And that basically dharma is when you live an authentic life. A divinely, that you're in your heart and you can hear that other voice. And that so that you pursue a life from that direction, so it's an authentic life. An authentic life, you have a life that basically you're living dharma. Dharma does not build karma. And that those who live an inauthentic life set up karmic situations. I liked that. I liked the way he handled that. I thought it was very good. Oh, Martin Shkreli, or Shkreli. Somebody, I read, I didn't read the whole article. I just saw that, this might be very unpopular, but this is overkill. I agree. I'm not a fan. The traditional societies did not have prisons. prisons are a sign of an archontic world. The archontic world has prisons. Traditional societies, I mean, you might have had, you can't, bad actions have consequences. There's no punishment. There's just consequences. Punishment is an archontic concept. And the word, this is another word, you better realize how sick it is. The word to hide punishment is the word justice. Justice means punishment. And that's what it means legally also. That Black's Law, justice means punishment. There is no justice until punishment is meted out. That's what justice is. In the real world, there's consequences. And there's no police to protect you in a traditional society. So if somebody fucks up and pisses off people around him, well, depending on the people he pissed off, their anger and violence levels, consequences will vary, but there will be consequences. So to me, putting Shkreli in a jail for 7 years, I mean, come on. He's a creep. He's a creep in a creepy world. But I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Yeah, the sword. Oh. In a strap-on version. Yes. Strap-on version. Do you have your strap-on sword mounted? All right. Probably time for me to close down this clown show of mine. So anyway, this has been fun. Rolling around. And so, like I said, maybe next week I'll just, hanging with the gang. But I'm going to discontinue Can't You Hear Me Gnostic. This is the last Can't You Hear Me Gnostic. I've decided. So, thank you all for being here, for bringing the love that you all do bring, and your wit, and your participation. So again, looks like I'll have a live stream next week, just with different objectives. So anyway, let me say good night. Mystic. Yeah, I'll be doing some Mystic Brews. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I have the only thing I'm shutting down is this particular themed live stream. Can't you? I've been Gnosticking. I might have been hurt a little bit, but it's like at this point it feels like I'm knocking rather than Gnosticking, and almost like being a pain in the ass about things. Sacred space is where it's at, Lee, and that's what one of the things that I'm really happy about our community is that our streams have become safe places. And they only became safe places because we all made a collective decision to make them safe and to keep them safe, and realizing that that's where we would grow and thrive and experience some joy. So love to you all, and I'll see you next week, and stay tuned for new things. But I always forget it takes about 15 minutes for me to stop, so I'm going to hit stop streaming.